Hello YouTube, welcome to Al's Toolbox. Today I want to talk about winterizing your pressure washer. It's that time of the year again where we're all going to be storing this equipment for a couple of months throughout the winter time, and they're mostly in sheds and garages. We want to ensure that the pumps don't freeze and that the fuel remains in good condition. So I want to talk about the fuel real quick. I use stabilizer on all of the fuel that I keep stored in my garage and in my shed. Anything I have in a 5-gallon container on the property or in a separate container, I stabilize the fuel. This takes 1 ounce to every 2.5 gallons of fuel. So a 5-gallon container takes 2 ounces. Lasts a really long time, and then you don't need to worry about it. On 4-cycle equipment, I choose not to drain the fuel. There's a lot of mixed thoughts and different schools of thought on that. Here's why real quick. There is far less rubber components inside a carburetor on a 4-cycle engine than a 2-cycle engine. A 2-cycle engine, where you mix the oil and the fuel together, those carburetors have several rubber diaphragms and they can deteriorate over time, especially if the fuel starts to break down. You won't have that issue in a 4-cycle engine. Again, the carburetors don't have as much rubber in them and there's not that much to worry about. I choose to keep the fuel in there but stabilized. If your fuel is not stabilized, you can stabilize the fuel that's in your tank. Just don't forget to run it to get that stabilized fuel through the entire fuel system and into the carburetor. Now I want to talk real quick about the pump. The important part about the pump over the winter time is we want to get the water out of the pump and possibly some antifreeze into the pump. Water left in that pump over the winter time can freeze, can crack that pump internally, and ruin the pressure washer. Most pressure washers you see online that are for sale that don't work, it's because they have bad pumps, because they were stored outside or in a shed without proper winterization. A really good way to do this is if you have compressed air. I know a lot of you don't have compressed air, so I'm going to show you a method to do this. A very inexpensive way to do it, where compressed air is not required. What we will use is we will use a transfer pump. I purchased this from Harbor Freight. They're about $15. I also purchased a container of RV antifreeze. You can buy this at Walmart. It's good to negative 50 degrees Fahrenheit, which is more than ample for our needs. This RV antifreeze is used in water lines and campers and motorhomes. It's safe for O-rings. It's not horrible for the environment. It's a really good way to go for your pressure washer. I would not recommend using an automotive antifreeze. There's a lot of additives in that. It's very specialty to automobiles and the transportation industry. The RV antifreeze is just a lot more generic, I think, and will probably do a much better job in the long run. What I also use is just a normal piece of heater hose. This happens to be a 90-degree piece of heater hose I had laying around. It can be a piece of straight heater hose, or you can choose to cannibalize it at the end of a garden hose to hook up to your pressure washer. So we're going to zoom in right now, and I'm going to show you how to get this done. Okay, so there is our pressure washer, and that's what we're concerned with. We're concerned with the pressure washer inlet. This is where your garden hose gets hooked up to, and we're concerned about the outlet. That's where the wand gets hooked up to. We want to get the water out of this pump, and we want to get antifreeze into the pump. You'll notice the clear hose. There are a lot of videos out there that recommend you put an antifreeze through that and try to siphon it through the pump that way. But you'll notice that that clear tube is always on the outlet side of the pump. So you will not get that antifreeze circulated through the entirety of the pump. So I'm going to show you how to do that using this method. So I take my heater hose, and I use some electrical tape to increase the diameter of it. And this is kind of, you have to feel your way through this to get the right diameter. But when you get it about right, you can actually just plug this into your inlet, and you can turn it like so, and you can get a pretty snug fit. Won't be good enough to hook a garden hose up to, but for our purposes, it's going to work wonderful. I use this pressure washer today, so this pump is filled with water right now. And on the end of my Harbor Freight pump, I also put electrical tape so it can fit snugly into the heater hose. Now I have the other end of my Harbor Freight transfer pump in my bottle of RV antifreeze. You'll notice I have a rod taped to that. That's because when you pull this pump out of the package, the hose is curled up, and it's hard to keep that hose seated in the bottom of the container to get a good seal. And what we're going to do is we're going to just start pumping, and we're going to see clear water come out of the outlet right here, and antifreeze start to come out after that. Once the antifreeze comes out, we know we're done. So we're going to just start pumping real slow. And here comes some water. We're pumping nice and slow. Clear water is coming out right now. We don't want to apply too much pressure, just a little bit at a time. And clear water is still coming out. We're getting all that water out. Starting to turn color a little bit, so we're starting to get some antifreeze through there. See if I can zoom in a little bit more. And we are still pumping. You can see it starts to sud up a little bit. And you can see that it's really no longer water. This is all antifreeze coming out now. We want to pump it through. And there we go. We've got all the water out now, and we've pumped RV antifreeze through the entirety of that pump. We've protected the integrity of the pump from freezing. We've stabilized the fuel. We are good to go to store this for the winter.